Hey, it's your dating coach, Matt B. Doing another video today. And it was a question I got from someone about if I've ever gotten an ex back. And I could say that there are two situations I can talk about where I'd like to talk about because the dynamics are different, and I think they're good demonstrative ideas to talk about these different things. So the first ex I ever got back was many years ago. I was dating someone for 6 months, possibly or so. I think it was 6 months. And it was a long distance relationship. I had to drive 2.5 hours to see her and vice versa. And there was I was going to go back to school, and honestly, I was having the grass is greener kind of thing with this, and I was like, oh, there's so many other women here, be less of a hassle, and I just find someone else that I'm more into or whatever. So I dumped this person, and then I immediately tried to take it back, which backfired, of course. Now, with regards to this person, she was kind of like really devastated by it. I mean, I could tell because she came down to hang out with me again as a friend. And I don't think it was that year that this happened, but we were still in contact here and there. Like, if you remember MySpace, so it was one of the things. She started seeing this guy, and I don't know if I think it was that like late winter of that, early the next year, because I had broken up with her in September of that year, and then this was like December or January of the following year. I was devastated about the breakup. I was still depressed, and as far as breaking up, she was seeing a new guy. I went up there and I bought her all this stuff, and I took her out to dinner. I bought her like this bracelet, and she had moved on. She was seeing this new guy, and I thought I could get her back by going back up there and begging and pleading and stuff. And it's kind of interesting because I was the one that dumped her, but at the same time, it's one of those situations where I totally being pretty quote unquote beta at the time. So we were still in contact a little bit here and there, and it wasn't really, we were on social media, right? And maybe about a year later, a little under a year later, we actually hung out and had sex. And I think that was the time when she sort of expressed wanting to be friends with benefits. It was just interesting. Wow, I had sex with my ex. It's kind of weird, but okay. And I don't know if it was a year after that we did it again, because the same kind of thing happened. It was like seeing someone once a year. So I wasn't sure what she thought. I knew she was seeing other guys, and I knew she was, she was moving on, but she had something for me still, it seemed like, Time passed, and, I think she actually got in a more serious thing with the guy. And she wasn't really expressing a lot of interest. She was kind of cold and stuff. And this is like 3.5 years later, or 3 years later of all, this is a long time we're talking about, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. All of a sudden, she started like doing these, through social media, like MySpace. I think it was MySpace. This was happening it's a long time ago. She started doing these surveys and stuff like about, it's just these cheesy surveys that people share, people used to share. She's like, what was my best relationship? And she's like, oh, Matt was the best relationship I had, blah, 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 nostalgia. And I was like, really? She had moved on like with several dudes and several boyfriends, and she held me in high esteem. And I was surprised because I'd prayed after we broke up that we'd get back together. I literally prayed for a long time. I was devastated, even though I was the one that initiated it. Don't get me wrong. So I read a lot into that, and I was like, oh, that's cool, you know. And then, I think it was like months and months later, we decided to hang out again. And this went on for about a month and a half or 2 months or something. And basically it was like, oh, well, I guess we're seeing each other again. So I guess that's the first story of me getting my ex back, because I did do it, even though I was the one who initiated it. And things surprise you. I'll just say that. You might be listening to this and just being like, my ex hates me, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you're just surprised at what someone sees in you and thinks of you. Because, like I said in a previous video, I think if you are a good person, you're into self-improvement, you're watching these videos because of that, the likelihood of you not being some kind of scumbag, with which a lot of people of both both sexes, genders, all genders, whatever, meet, it's highly likely you're better in some way than someone's rebound, or the guys they move on with, or women they move on with, or whatever. So that's something to think about, because she had done this like online MySpace survey and said I was this valuable to her, and I don't remember how many guys she was with after me, how many guys she dated. It was more than, I think it was at least 3 or 4 guys, or maybe, I don't know. I can't remember. At least one serious guy, one semi-serious guy. I know that. I know it was like 3 or 4, maybe a couple more too. I mean, just for casual things. So it's something to think about, because you're right. If you're in your grieving process, you don't know how someone thinks of you. But it's like, it was one of those things. So the second time, this is another situation I had where I could have gotten my ex back, but I didn't, because I was being stupid. And what happened is, she broke up with me. Immediately she apologized, kind of half apologized, emailed me, and I wasn't sure what I said. I was sort of begging and pleading a little bit, but not too badly. And then she said, I don't know what I think right now about everything, blah, 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 I got pretty devastated right away, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But I started watching those guys talk about no contact, blah, 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 the get your ex back people. And I was like, okay, I'll go into no contact. 8 days later, or maybe it was 10 days later, she all of a sudden, I didn't talk to her. This is where no contact actually worked. She got in contact with me and wanted to give me some stuff back, quote unquote. To be fair, it was only this like CD and like this, I don't even know if it was a book. I don't even think there was a book. There was some CD and some necklace, or I don't even know if it was I can't remember. I'd have to look at the email, but it was like really trivial stuff she could have mailed me, for Christ's sake. But back then, being who I was and being ignorant of a lot of this stuff, I was like, oh, she just wants to give me my stuff back. Around the same time, she started posting all this stuff on Facebook, because I try to remain Facebook friends with my exes. It doesn't always happen that way, but so in this situation, I had done that, which I would recommend doing that, honestly, even if you unfollow them. I just think it's a smarter move, because at least you have that connection still. Of course, you can go into no contact still with Facebook and stuff. That's where I'm at with a current ex, by the way. Who I don't think is going to come back necessarily. So I think she started, this girl, so anyways, this other ex I was just talking about, she started posting all this stuff about my father's books that she was reading and it was kind of like, what? Why? Not that my dad's a bad writer. It's just like, why would she all of a sudden post all this stuff? And it was like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm reading this book by him, and this is what I think about it. It was very strange. So eventually we did meet up, but by then it'd been like a month and a half, and I think she had moved on. I kept putting it off, meeting up with her. But I think the window was there, I swear, because of all this stuff. So that's another time that I messed it up, unfortunately. So that's the thing. If someone wants to meet up with you, if your ex is kind of has this weird, almost like frantic, or I'm going to call it frantic, like anxious, like need to meet up with you, I think that's a good sign that they want to reconcile. Now, you don't have to reconcile with them, and you don't have to go into it thinking that you're going to reconcile, but I wasn't really at the emotional stage where I could have maybe reconciled too. I was really out of it and disoriented and stuff. So, but if I would have known what I know now about it, I would have probably tried to reconcile and tried to, make some moves and stuff. Because when you meet up with an ex like that, where you were really in love, so this is what happens, like in this situation like this. I'll just say with this situation, when you're in this moment with this woman and she dumps you because you're in this bad part of the relationship and you're feeling depressed and stuff. You made up with her. The pedestal just goes up. So when I met up with her, I was in love again. And I was having doubts about her, before, because I was going through a lot of stuff with seasonal depression and stuff like that. So seasonal affective disorder. So when I met up with her, I was just like enthralled. But by then it was too late, because she broke up with me in late January of this particular year. And we didn't meet up until like March or April, or maybe April. And by then she was already seeing this new guy. I think what was going on, honestly, is that she was like not sure about this new guy, and she wanted to see, test the waters with me again and stuff. And that's fine. So you got to pay attention. You got to be conscientious of what's going on with your ex as far as if they want to get back together. But also keep in mind that you never know what can happen in this life. Because with that previous ex where I begged and pleaded months later and tried to, I thought we were just, I guess we'll just be friends, blah, even though I was the one who dumped her, I reverted to the mode of the dumpee in a certain way by that point, which was months later. But I got her back. I didn't, by then I did. Honestly, I don't know if I wanted her back by that point, because it just was really weird. But it was nevertheless something that happened about 4 years later. So keep that in mind, that if you think it's impossible, it's not. I mean, there are certain people it's going to be impossible with. Just like my most recent ex, she has so much baggage and so many issues, and how she is with men, or her relationships in general. She's very likes to avoid confrontation with anything, and likes not to face up to things. So I don't think it's probably reconciliation. I don't think reconciliation is in the cards with her, her and I. Of course, people can change and things can change, just like that. The ex I was just talking about. I was really shocked that I got back together with my, one of my exes. But unfortunately by then I had kind of I just lost my interest in her for various reasons, which, we had changed too much. She had changed in this way that really wasn't compatible with me. I'll just put it that way. And that's, but people can change. Things can change anytime. Have an abundance mentality, like I said in the last video. That's what you got to do, about whether it's about your ex or about other people. So that's all I got to say. If you are interested in email coaching, please send me an email and subscribe.